The goat that nearly died for Urland. Mrs. Conmee used to keep a goat. It seems that a lot of people used to keep a goat or such animal, even in the city, if you could find a place to graze it, because it provided you with milk or food. It helped to make ends meet in those days. Mrs. Conmee was very fond of this goat. It was a bit of a household pet. Since she lived out at the back of Croke Park, the big GAA ground in Dublin, there was a bit of open ground there between the back of the houses and Croker. She grazed him out there on the grass, tied to an old stump so he wouldn't run away, and there he grazed to his heart's content. Now in the year 1920, the war was in full swing. The Republicans were shooting at the Brits, and the Brits were shooting back, and many's the poor bugger used to get caught in the crossfire. But one of the most extraordinary episodes in the War of Independence was what came to be known as Bloody Sunday. Now that was a Sunday where, in the morning, Michael Collins, the leader of the underground resistance, had ordered a number of English spies to be shot. He sent out his men on this morning, and they went around and they roused these men from their beds and shot them. When they heard that, the Black and Tans were very angry. They lost the run on themselves, in fact. They got into their tenders, as the lorries were called, and they drove out intending to make some reprisal. This was in the afternoon. Now they knew there was a GAA match that afternoon up at Croke Park. They knew the Gaelic football crowd were sympathetic to the Republican side, and so they regarded them as the enemy. So what did they do? Only go up around by the back of Croker, in the middle of the football match. They climbed up behind the stands and opened fire on the players and the crowd. Now, many people were killed. There was great chaos and disorder as people tried to get away from the ground. Of course, when the shooting started, the old goat belonging to Mrs. Conmee was out at the back of Croker, and I suppose he was stampeded by the crowd. And now after the shooting was all over, Mrs. Conmee went out to look for the goat. She already feared the worst, I suppose, and when she got out there, he was gone. He had slipped his tether, and he'd either been shot or been trampled to death. She came home very despondent, and the family were sitting around in the kitchen trying to commiserate with her over the loss of the goat. And one of them says to her, "At least you died for Urland." Now as soon as that was said, there was a thunderous knock on the front door, and they all sat there paralysed with fear. "Glory be to God," they said, "it's the Black and Tans come back to finish the job." Because the Black and Tans used to raid a lot of houses. Anyway, there was a thunderous knock at the door again. So they said, "We'd better answer it." And they edged their way out into the hall. After further furious knocks, they opened it in great trepidation, and what came charging in but the goat? He'd found his way home, and was beating his horns on the door to get in, and that was how he became known as the goat that nearly died for Urland.